Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Ever feel like we're constantly bombarded with stories about these unicorn startups, these overnight successes? It's easy to think, well, it's got to be some secret sauce, some stroke of genius, right?
Yeah.
But what really drives success in the entrepreneurial world? Is it all just luck?
That's a great question, and it's something that today's deep dive subject has spent a lot of time researching.
Right. And to unpack those questions, we're diving into the work of Ethan Mollick.
Yeah, Ethan Mollick. So for those who aren't familiar, he's an associate professor at Wharton.
And when you say Wharton, we're talking that Wharton. But
Exactly, that Wharton. So yeah, he brings some serious academic weight.
Harvard, Andy, MIT, even, if you're keeping track?
Right. The guy clearly knows his stuff. But what's so fascinating about Mollick is that he doesn't just study entrepreneurship, he lives it.
Okay, so he's got the credentials and he walks the walk. Tell me more.
Well, you find him on social media, experimenting with new technology in his classroom. He really practices what he preaches, which is what makes his research so compelling, you know? It's not just theoretical. He's out there testing these ideas in the real world.
I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So what's one of the biggest myths Mollick tackles about entrepreneurship?
Well, you know how we always hear about these lone genius entrepreneurs, like they just conjured success out of thin air?
Yeah, the classic image of like the Steve Jobs tinkering away in his garage. Or
Yeah,
that.
exactly. But Mollick's research actually flips that idea on its head, one of his biggest findings. The makeup of your team is one of the biggest predictors of success.
So it's not just about one brilliant mind. It's more about the collective.
Absolutely. He looked at things like diversity, and not just in the traditional sense. We're talking diversity of thought, experience, even social networks.
So the more diverse your team, the better your chances of success.
It's more nuanced than that, but essentially, yes. Teams with a wider range of perspectives consistently outperform those where everyone looks and thinks alike.
Makes sense, right? You're less likely to fall into groupthink and more likely to come up with creative solutions.
Right, right. Different perspectives, different ideas, different ways of approaching problems. That makes sense.
And then there's social intelligence.
Social intelligence.
Yeah, that ability to read people, understand dynamics, and build strong relationships.
Yeah.
Mollick's research shows that teams high in social intelligence are just better at navigating conflict, communicating effectively, and building trust.
Which, let's be honest, are pretty essential skills, whether you're starting a business or, just trying to function as a human in the world.
Exactly. It really highlights that entrepreneurial success isn't about some individual brilliance as much as it is about creating a collaborative environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute. So if it's not just about one brilliant mind, what does influence success? I know Mollick has done a lot of work on the role of luck, which is fascinating because it's not something you always hear acknowledged in the business world.
Yeah, and it's not that he's dismissing hard work or saying that skill doesn't matter, but he's really challenging this idea that you can just outwork or outsmart your way to success. His book, The Unicorn's Shadow, goes really deep on this.
Right. It's like we love those stories of people who just will themselves to the top, but often there's a lot of luck involved too.
Absolutely. And I think Mollick would say there's also a lot we can do to, improve our odds. Take crowdfunding, for example.
Right. He's done a lot of work studying platforms like Kickstarter.
Exactly. And his findings there are fascinating. You see, he found that even when you control for things like the quality of the idea itself, things like how you present that idea, the quality of your video, even just the way you structure your rewards can significantly impact whether or not you get funded.
It's like, it's not just about having a great idea, it's about how you package and present it to the world.
Exactly. It's about capturing people's attention, making them care, making them want to be part of your journey.
Which speaks to the power of storytelling.
100%. And this is where Mollick's work starts to break the gap between entrepreneurship and education,
Yeah.
because he argues that these skills, adaptability, communication, the ability to navigate uncertainty, they're not just like nice to haves, they're essential for success in today's world.
And he's not just talking about this, he's actually putting these ideas into practice at Wharton, right?
Exactly.
I mean, using AI, simulations, games, all of these cutting-edge tools that you wouldn't typically associate with, like your traditional business school. So it's like he's saying, look, let's stop pretending the world is this predictable, stable place and actually equip students with the skills to navigate the chaos,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. He wants to bring the chaos into the classroom in a way. It's less about here's the textbook answer, and more about here's how to think on your feet, how to adapt.
Which honestly is way more valuable than memorizing facts, right?
100%, especially in a world where information is changing so rapidly.
Give me an example, though. How does he actually bring this to life in the classroom?
Well, he uses a lot of really interesting teaching tools. I mean, he talks about using these AI-powered simulations.
Okay, AI simulations. Sounds fancy. But how does that work?
So imagine instead of just reading about, say, market dynamics, you're thrown into this simulated environment where you have to make business decisions in real time.
Whoa, so you're like thrown in the deep end, huh?
Yeah, basically, you have to analyze the data, you got to adapt to the constantly changing conditions, and try to keep your company afloat.
Okay, that sounds intense. But way more engaging and effective than just trying to absorb all that from a textbook.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it, right? It forces you to think critically, to make decisions under pressure, to learn from your mistakes.
Which, let's be real, are all essential skills for,
Hmm.
well, life in general, not just the business world.
Right. And it's funny because it ties back to that earlier point about the importance of social intelligence. Because even in these simulations, you're often working in teams. So you have to figure out how to communicate effectively, how to navigate disagreements, how to leverage everyone's strengths.
It's like he's building this, like, entrepreneurial muscle. But it's not just about starting a business. It's about being adaptable, resilient, resourceful.
100%. He talks about how the future of learning isn't about just acquiring more and more knowledge.
Right, because we can access so much information so easily now.
Exactly. It's about learning how to learn. It's about being comfortable with uncertainty, being able to pick up new skills quickly, being willing to experiment and, maybe even fail sometimes.
Which can be a tough sell, right? Because our education system often conditions us to fear failure. It's all about getting the A, not necessarily about the learning process.
Totally. But Mollick is challenging that. He's saying, hey, failure is part of the process. It's how we learn and grow.
I like that. So it's less about avoiding failure and more about creating a space where it's safe to experiment, to try new things, even if it means messing up sometimes.
Exactly. And it's about being open to new technologies and tools that can help us learn more effectively. I mean, he's a huge proponent of using AI in education, not to replace teachers, but to augment what they can do.
Which is something people have really strong feelings about, like, where does AI fit into the future of learning?
Right. It's a huge question. And to be fair, not everyone agrees with Mollick's approach.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you have someone challenging the status quo, you're getting some pushback.
Yeah.
That's to be expected.
Right. And there are valid concerns, of course. Like, are we relying too much on technology? Are we sacrificing depth of knowledge for breadth? These are all important questions to consider. But I think what's so refreshing about Mollick is that he's willing to have those tough conversations.
Yeah, he's not shying away from the controversy. He's leaning into it. He's like, let's talk about this. Let's figure out how to use these tools responsibly and ethically to create a better future for learning.
Exactly. And that's what I find so inspiring about his work. He's not just armchair theorizing, he's out there actually doing it, experimenting, iterating, and most importantly, sharing what he's learning along the way.
And he's making it accessible, too. Like, you don't need to be a Wharton professor or a tech genius to understand and apply his ideas. He breaks it down in a way that anyone can digest and use.
Totally. He's all about democratizing knowledge, making it accessible to everyone.
Which is something we are 100% here for. But before we get too carried away singing his praises, we do want to leave our listeners with a final thought, something to chew on. So, thinking about everything we've discussed, the teams, the role of luck, this whole idea of embracing change, lifelong learning, where does that leave our listener? Like, what's the one big takeaway they can actually apply to their own life?
It's a great question, and one I think Mollick would want us to wrestle with, It's not about just passively absorbing this information. It's about doing something with it.
Right, right. So how do we bridge that gap between theory and action?
Well, if I had to distill Mollick's work down to one core principle, it would be this. Embrace experimentation.
Embrace experimentation. There's a certain elegance to that.
Right, and it's deceptively simple. But when you really think about it, it's kind of radical. Because it's not just about, trying a new productivity hack or signing up for that pottery class you've been eyeing. It's about fundamentally shifting your mindset.
From what to what?
From a place of fear and avoidance to a place of curiosity and growth. It's about reframing the way you view challenges and setbacks.
So instead of thinking, oh, what if I fail? What if I make a mistake? It's more like, Okay, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to get better, to grow?
Exactly. It's about embracing the unknown, the uncomfortable, because that's where the real magic happens. And that's what's so exciting about Mollick's work. He's not just advocating for a different way of learning or working, he's advocating for a different way of being in the world, one that's open, adaptable, and always evolving.
I love that. So it's like we're all entrepreneurs of our own lives, in a way, right?
100%.
Like we're all trying to build something, whether it's a career, a relationship, a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling. And Mollick's work gives us a framework for doing that in a way that's not just like more efficient or productive, but more exciting, more joyful even.
Absolutely. And then more brave, too. Yeah, I mean, think about it. It takes courage to step outside of your comfort zone, to embrace the unknown, to trust that even if you don't have all the answers right now, you have the capacity to figure things out along the way.
To embrace the journey, not just the destination. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the inspiring and thought-provoking work of Ethan Mollick. We hope you found it as insightful and useful as we did.
And that it sparked some new ideas, some new possibilities for your own life and work.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.